Good morning. Okay, we'll give it just a couple quick minutes for everyone else to hop on and get in through the Zoom. Okay, let's go ahead and get started today. So thanks everyone for joining us. We sure appreciate it. We just wanted to take a few minutes this morning, about an hour of your time, and go through our resolution for board appointments this morning. And welcome Commissioner Fiedler. So we'll start off with, if everyone could just share a little bit of good news and introduce yourself to Commissioner Fiedler, because I don't know if we've all had the opportunity to do that being remote. So if y'all take a chance to do that this morning, just share one little piece of good news that you have, and then we'll get going on the rest of our agenda. So Amber, we'll start with you.
Good morning, Amber McGee. I'm the Director of Recreation. And I think the good news for us currently is that we are having record use at our winter outdoor facilities. So very exciting for the Recreation Department. But I will caveat that with saying we're actually going to close Dutch Henry this weekend because the snow is so low. It's getting a bit dangerous. We're seeing lots of crashes and collisions, and so in the interest of everyone's safety, we're going to close that until we get some more snow to build up those berms and make it a little safer. So if folks are asking you, that is what's going on there. But the ice rink, it looks beautiful and is open.
Thanks, Amber. Colleen, we'll jump to you.
Hi, so I am Colleen Nielsen. I'm the Director of Public Health, and a bit of good news. I think, the most telling, right, for most of us is the fact that we have vaccine flowing into our county currently, and we have not been skipped a week since it started. So that's super exciting. And then on a personal note, I haven't had to fight my daughter to get out the door today. So that felt fantastic. She's 8, but it can be tough.
Cool, thanks. Paul, let's head to you.
Hey, Jeff. Building and land use. And I think that we're bringing in lots of taxable property value to the county.
Places for people to live.
And places, well, yeah, but these are not the affordable places that we might like.
Yeah.
Cool. Bryce?
How you doing, Jeff? Good to see you again. I saw you a couple of days ago. Yeah, so my name is Bryce Ehrlich. I'm the county mapper and GIS guy. And this department was reestablished last year. So I guess the good news is that we're able to kind of hit this year on the ground running, with our own budget and everything and lots of resources. So, if you have anything that you're interested in or that you want help with, I'm happy to help you. My main thing is that I can help you with data analysis and mapping and visualization of, economic, social, environmental data, things like that. So happy to help, but welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bryce. Let's hop down to Amit.
Hello, everybody. Amit with IT department. And the good news is nothing's wrong. So if everyone's happy, I'm happy. And welcome, Jeff.
Yay! Thanks, Amit. Kaylee?
Hi, good morning. Kaylee Ham, Director for the Office of Emergency Management. Something good, I would echo having vaccines. I think this is a good time, and overall, I feel like all of our spirits are lifted and enjoying this actual process when it's something that public health knows well and we get to support and be their cheerleader. And I got to participate in the state EOC exercise yesterday, and it was not a COVID scenario, and it was wonderful. And it was a tragedy and a disaster, but certainly kind of lights a flame again for that planning for what else can happen. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Brenna?
Hi, everyone. Brenna, the Lake County Public Library. I think, Jeff, it's been a while, but we've met briefly. Good things are, we got some new staff last fall, and so that's freed up full-time people to focus on programming. So we have winter reading going right now. We're going to roll out another reading program in March. We're planning for summer, and we're planning some other programming. So we're kind of excited about that. And we have the library things, and that's going really well. And so yeah, we're just kind of rolling along here, and the doors are still open, which we are super happy about. So that is a good thing. So that's it, and welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
Cool. Let's move on to Michael Irwin.
Good morning, everyone. Right now is really a busy time of the year for me, especially with Road and Bridge. We have HUTF roads to report to the state and hopefully get them, more mileage and whatever, but that will be coming to the commissioner very soon for their signatures. By the way, welcome, Jeff. I know we've met and talked a little bit, but from there, we did have some really good news this last week. We have been waiting on some information from a pavement plan and inspection, and we got some of that information back. We're getting more of it every day, and believe it or not, our pavement is not very bad. It's actually in pretty good condition, everybody. It's all repairable. It's not something that we have to go and completely tear up. I know some streets in West Park are not good, but most of our asphalt's on the good side. So that's really good news for Lake County, especially with the $44 million asset that we deal with. So there you go.
Thanks, Michael. They did not do an assessment of the city, though. Is that correct?
No, they did not do the assessment of the city. We traded it off for some other things because we couldn't get, what would be good to do in the city. They could not do it all.
Okay. Cool. Crystal, if you can hear us and unmute yourself, we'll go to you next.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good. Welcome again, Jeff. It's great to have you with us. Crystal Hewlett, Director of Finance. Good news is we are completely up and running in the new Encode 10 finance system. Not without some scrapes and bruises, but we're working our way through it. And also I'm excited to continue my career with Lake County government.
Thanks, Crystal. We're glad to have you. Yay. And I think Patty's the last one on here. So Patty, if you'd like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself and give us some good news, that'd be great.
I'm Patty Berger, the county clerk. I don't know if you can hear me over the drilling, But my good news is that we will have a full staff back. We've had a woman that has been on maternity leave, and she will be back on Monday. We are still helping people remotely, online, through the Dropbox, in the mail. So we're still trying to keep the license plates flowing in the community. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And then we'll go to Chris. Chris is joining us today. I don't know if you guys all had seen on our resolution that we had a change in legal representation at the county. And I think just for the purposes of, hitting the rumor mill off right at the get-go before it gets started, the change in legal representation is not due to any bad blood or performance issues. Our previous acting county attorney, Ms. Parlin, had made the recommendation to the board and had begun transferring a lot of the legal work that she was doing for the county over to Chris to prepare for a smooth transition, which I think has gone very smoothly, because she is looking on making some different changes in her personal life. And so she had graciously made a recommendation to us for Rocky Mountain General Counsel to begin taking on that transition. And I think it's gone really smooth. So just wanted y'all to know that we could not be happier about that transition either. So Chris, I'll let you go ahead.
Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. The good news for me for today, obviously, is being honored with appointment as the county's county attorney. So I look forward to continuing to work with everybody in that role. My colleague, Katie Walter, will serve as assistant county attorney. And so not only will you have, I hope, me to turn to when you need help, but also additional resources and backup in the event I'm not readily available. So we look forward to the opportunity and honored to assist the county with its legal needs.
Thanks, Chris. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to join us today. And so we just will go through this resolution. A few departments have had a couple changes. Finance, human resources, and the library are the big ones right now that have changed oversight, and Jeff will oversee those departments. We're gonna anticipate that oversight not lasting a super long time, because we will start going into the implementation of the county manager organizational structure. So we'll be moving into that in the month of February. And so we'll work with our regional representative from DOLA, Christy Dune, and she will help us develop that job description and develop that organizational chart. And then we will, from there, engage with a professional recruiting firm so that the process is done in a pretty broad net approach and remains unbiased. And that recruiting process will be done in collaboration with our state partners. The state has awarded us a grant for $400,000 in total to make this project feasible from implementation, and so that it ensures that once it has been fully implemented in the organization, that it stays that way, so that our organization will have continuity in our operations way past our current board. So the state collaboration on that project has been great. And I think, DOLA's investment into that project really speaks volumes about kind of what they have observed as our need for operations to be good partners to the state, and not only for the state to be good partners to us. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the resolution for managing commissioner roles? Or Sarah or Jeff, is there anything that you'd like to share about that resolution at this point?
I don't have anything to add, no.
Yeah, no, I will schedule some sort of like check-in handoff meetings. Just hopefully. Oh my goodness, and sorry for that drilling in the background. Wow.
No worries. Okay, so that's what we have to look forward to in 2021. For 2020 wrap up, I know that it might be a little challenging for us to think about 2020, and I'm sure that most people don't want to think about 2020 anymore. But Sarah and I will go through the process of conducting evaluations on our directors and departments that we had overseen in 2020. And so that will be a collaborative approach, and will include Jeff in those evaluations, although Jeff won't have anything to evaluate. We'll just keep him privy to that information so that he can help you in any kind of development or growth that you might want or request as a director. So we'll reach out to all of your advisory boards or management boards as applicable to include them in that evaluation process as well, so that it's a very well-rounded approach. And we'll start doing that in February. I'm working on finishing up the evaluations now so that we can get ready to start those evaluations soon. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or requests, or any ideas about the evaluation process that you'd like to see from us? We're open to taking any kind of feedback right now. If you have anything that you'd like to add. No?
I might say that I think we'd all like to see 2020 in hindsight. And I think we're all probably looking forward to 2021, particularly with this new board.
Thanks, Paul. I think we're really excited too.
Thanks, Paul.
I think we've got a lot of momentum, and I can't speak for Sarah, but I am so excited to have Jeff on board. So it's great to have that additional perspective with us to help us, tag team this process. So that's really all I have in my 2020 wrap up. County manager process is next on our agenda. So just kind of walk you all through the process. We were notified that we were awarded our grant funding from DOLA at the end of 2020. So in December of 2020, they sent us the notification that we were awarded that grant. The grant is for approximately $400,000 and over a 3-year time period for the implementation of formal management structure that is meant to ease into that management structure and then make it suitable for the long term. So with that, we've reached out to several surrounding counties and our regional manager at DOLA to go through that process and ask questions about that process, and basically ask like, hey, where do we start? Because we've kind of failed at this before. And so we've learned a lot of lessons from the last time that we've done this. And so how do we start to make it successful? And so the first place that we start is that we look at the organizational structure of those other counties and communities, and then look at those job descriptions, and our DOLA representative will help us kind of reflect and realign our goals that we have as commissioners, and then build that into that organizational structure and job description. And I think we'd like to have that process be inclusive with having some feedback from directors of what you would expect in a manager. And so that will be forthcoming in February. And we'll try to get something scheduled with Christy so that ball starts rolling rather quickly. And we have to get that ball rolling quickly in order to meet the metrics of that grant funding. Sarah or Jeff, do you have anything to add on to that right now?
I guess just to comment about our initiating the handbook revision. And so I think some of those projects will go hand in hand to further support the addition of that position and all of us across the county.
Yeah, that's a great point, Sarah. Sarah and I have worked with handing our handbook over to a third-party consultant through HR Plus to help us get it current. Chris, do you have anything that you'd like to add on that? I know that you had helped us a lot of that with that policy piece.
Not specifically. I think like I said, the move towards updating the handbook and stuff, and just in terms of feedback, it'd be good to hear from the different departments. Take the opportunity to review the existing handbook and hear from the departments as to how things are actually working. If there are things that the policy says one thing, but in reality, the implementation may need to look a little different. Now would be a good time to provide that feedback so that there's some context in any revisions are made to the policies and stuff like that.
Thanks, Chris. I think that's really helpful. So I think, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was just gonna add, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, something I'd be, or at least in my head, there's sort of like two like related but different buckets of kind of input I'd love from, this discussion amongst the three of us as commissioners and the directors, so there's like what goes in the job description, but then also kind of like really getting clear about how kind of reporting lines and information flow will change, which might be more stuff that you wouldn't put in a job description, but it would be great, I think, to make this transition be successful, that we're all really on the same page about, how, it's a big change. So we need to be comfortable with that and have our concerns addressed and sort of, figure that out. And, for me, it's like, at least as I understand it, or think about it, the big shift is that for the three commissioners, we really shifted to just having one employee as this new county manager, and I think the county attorney but then figuring out how, for different things, like if we get a constituent request or, we have a question or something comes up, just sort of kind of put in writing or have real frank discussions about making sure we're all on the same page about, who we include when we ask questions, with a new flow. So, again, I think there's, there's the job description, but also that kind of set of norms and, understanding of information flow and kind of who gets CC'd on what. So everyone feels like they're still in the right loops.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That's a really great point. I think it'll be a really big shift for us, and it's gonna feel a little bit like a shock to the system at first. When this position is implemented and this person is in place, so it will definitely change our organizational norms where, directors will be asked to report to that person, and then that person will report to the board. And so we'll be able to fine tune that and fine tune what that looks like through those meetings with our regional manager, Christy Dune. She's done this for several other counties, and out of the 64 counties in the state, there's like 4 of us that don't have this formal management structure. And I think that the other 3 that don't are too small and have like 6 employees or something. They're very small Eastern Plain counties that don't have the same kind of revenue or population base as us. So with that being said, I think, we'll definitely be looking for feedback from all of you on how those operational norms are going to change, and understand what your expectations of easing into those operational norms will look like. So definitely be thinking about that. But I think also, to add to Jeff's point, there's been a lot of work happening in the background with Sarah and myself trying to get things prepared for this position. So we talked about the handbook. We're looking at rebuilding the public records request document and how to appropriately make that process flow and where that information is stored and kept, working on records retention and procurement and financial policy revamp with Katie at Chris's firm. So those policy changes should be expected to be forthcoming relatively quickly as well. So we'll get some drafted language put together in those policy documents, and then push those out to all of you and elected officials and ask for feedback, and then meet to discuss that feedback and implementation, and then make any adjustments or changes as necessary on those policies. So we've been working fast and furious in the background to get all of this stuff kind of spun up and really at a place where it's just ready to be finished up by the time that this person comes on board. Does anybody have any questions or recommendations or anything that you'd like to share at this point about the process, or what you'd like to see out of the process that might be helpful for us to ensure that it's successful?
Kayla, I'm actually just curious about feedback for the handbook. Does that go to the BOCC directly? Do all three of you want to see that feedback? I'm also curious about if the intention is to keep the same style of handbook that we have, where it is trying to kind of be all inclusive, or are we going to go with a smaller handbook that might have more policies to supplement it? I know that, just curious. Or do we know that?
Sarah, do you want to take the lead on that one?
The first draft that we've gotten is, I think, pretty similar to that format. But that's something we can talk about with HR Plus, perhaps, and or maybe with a review. None of us have reviewed that draft yet, as we need to plan those meetings and work sessions. So I think I'd just keep that in mind. And Amber, if you have other examples of what you're asking, that would be helpful. And I would say send those comments on the handbook to the whole board.
Yeah, I think my only thought on a potentially different style of handbook is just that I think some of the things we talk about, like FLSA or overtime or those types of things, tend to change, and I think that's why our handbook is so out of date, is just because those changes can come kind of rapidly sometimes. And I'm wondering if like a more basic handbook might need to be updated less often, and then the policies that supplement it could be updated as changes are made. And I don't know that it necessarily matters, but that was just my kind of curiosity. So I will send you all of the feedback for the handbook, and it can be as one large document or as several, whatever it ends up being. It doesn't matter to me. I was just curious.
So this is Chris. That I wanted to dovetail, Amber. You pretty much read my mind on that. I'm more of a fan of having a handbook that is somewhat of a living document. Just because, as Amber pointed out, I'm a former employment litigator and do a lot of work in that arena. And one of the great things about specializing in that area is you never get bored, because it pretty much changes every day. And so, having the type of handbook that can kind of live and grow as the laws and requirements of the county change, I think is important. So, I'd definitely be supportive of trying to develop a document that has the opportunity to be supplemented as you go along.
Thanks, Chris. I think, Amber, that's kind of what the preliminary conversation with that third-party consultant has been. At least they had asked for my feedback, and they had asked for Sarah's feedback on, what are some of the things that you all have come up against that seem to be consistent. And so a lot of those things we're like having multiple positions. Like if you're a scorekeeper and a motor vehicle clerk, how does that work? You know, what's the correct process to pay that person? What's the correct process to document it? You know, timesheet documentation, overtime and holiday pay, some of those nuanced things that we really haven't, that have been kind of tricky in the past. Like if you work 4/10s and you work Tuesday through Friday, but there's a holiday on Monday, how do you get compensated for your holiday? Like all those different nuanced things. And so we've kind of given all of that feedback to them as well, so that can be taken into consideration. And then we'll share that draft out with you guys, and then you can provide us all that feedback of things that you think we may have missed or not given in that draft. But thank you, Amber. I think that feedback is very valuable and very important. And I think that you are right, that our handbook sometimes is so specific that there's just not enough time to keep up with all of the changes that are implemented. Does anybody else have any questions on any of that stuff, or have any other comments or anything that we'd like to consider? Because I think I am speaking for myself here, sorry, but we're very open to feedback on that, and want to make that process inclusive, and so that you guys are helping us put together some of that feedback. So anything you guys might have would be really helpful. Paul, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was intrigued by your comment about how severe, if I'm using the right word, a change to a board manager system will be for us all. And I think I might like to point out, having worked in jurisdictions that have managers, that when I first got here, I thought that the fact that we didn't have one was disturbing. And after working with it for a month or two, I began to like it a lot. And so I guess I'm a little bit of mixed feeling about that, because I think that gaining a manager won't be as severe a change for all of us as you might be thinking. I also would like to say that I think we've been dealing with as severe a change as that by all meeting remotely now. And I don't know how long that's going to continue, but I think that this remote meeting that we do now is probably more severe than actually having a county manager.
Thanks, Paul. I think that's really good feedback. I think, you know, a lot of the lessons that we've learned through the response for the pandemic is that we as county commissioners cannot appropriately respond to the pandemic as policy group, if you will, if we're bogged down by internal day-to-day management. We don't have the ability then to participate in those larger group conversations and those conversations with regional partners or state partners, and learn from what's going on around us and how we can implement that on a local level. And so I think that that's been really difficult for us, is there isn't a clear delineation between us as a representative and legislative body and us as day-to-day managers, if you will. And so I think that that's been really difficult, because sometimes those lines have a tendency to blur. And then I think that kind of has gotten us caught up in the spoke of the wheel as we're trying to be responsive to our community and represent our community in larger conversations. And then, you know, having all of that day-to-day, hey, this is happening and it needs to be addressed right now. Like the airport modular building flooded, and you've got to, I need you to meet me up there. And we've got to, you know, like, and then, you know, we have to fill out all that insurance paperwork and that type of stuff. And to be quite frank, like, I don't think that it's appropriate or that it does the community any kind of justice or service to elect a county commissioner to file insurance claims. And I think that those are jobs that should be handed off to somebody that is tasked with those internal management pieces. so that we can do our jobs and be responsive to our community in a pandemic. I know that this pandemic isn't going to last forever, but and that this is kind of like the once in a lifetime thing, but you know, that is our job. And so I'm really hopeful that this will make it a lot better, a lot better for us and for you, because I think, you know, we are tasked with leaving the organization and our community in a better place than when we came into office. And we are doing a disservice to you by not implementing this management structure so that you have the tools that you need to continue to work as the leadership changes above you. And so I think that that's really important. So thank you so much for your feedback. Does anybody else have any kind of feedback that you might want to give us on this process, or what you'd like to see come out of this process, or how you might like to participate in that process? No? Okay, well, we will move forward with the process, and once we start having those meetings with our regional manager from DOLA, we will tag in our fellow elected officials and department directors so that you can sit in on those meetings and understand how the process evolves and how the process changes, and how we go through the process as not only as Lake County government, the employer, but also as Lake County, the community, because this person will be very important to the community. So it'll be not only an organizational involvement, but a community involvement in that process. So we will keep you apprised of that as the ball starts rolling, which should happen within the next week or so. So pretty exciting times happening here. So I added onto our agenda today, and I'm really sorry, Colleen, if I put you on the spot, just a brief update from Public Health on the process, because I think that sometimes there might be some questions about, well, I work for the government, so should I get a vaccine, or when should I expect to get a vaccine? And so maybe if you can just explain to us where the line is drawn by the state, and then what directors and elected officials can expect to relay to their staff, I think that would be really helpful. Ooh, you're muted.
Yes, I don't have the graphic up, but I'm going to grab it here in a second because I think that's really useful. So let me see if I have the updated one. If not, Kaylee, if you grab it before I do, because it'll just make sense to kind of look at the graphic. And there is Kaylee Ham sharing her screen.
Yay.
All right, thank you, Kaylee. That was fantastic. You obviously were prepared. So basically where we're at, right? This is our vaccination distribution plan, if you will. This is taken from the state. We've made a couple adjustments with the hope that it looks a little bit, that it's easier to comprehend, if you will. So basically, we're in phase 1. We're actually working through our first responders, their second dose this week. So those are the folks you can see in green, they're checked, right? And so the other piece that we're working on right now, which is yellow, is folks age 70 and older. And so the thought process behind that, just so folks know, is we know that the population 70 and older is what's been threatening the hospital system, you know, on the Front Range in the Metro District, which we're, as you know, are relying on when we do have a critical case to go down there. So these are the folks that are getting, you know, sicker. These are the folks who are getting hospitalized, and these are the folks who are dying. And so the thought was, because this changed on December 30th, so that was a great, New Year's present, because that group, the 70 and up, was not initially in phase 1. But the recognition from the governor and the state was, hey, if we get these folks, we can take that pressure off our hospital system and have one less thing to worry about as we roll out vaccine. So that is where we're at. They have a dotted line. So we are currently above the line. So you might hear some of that in some of the meetings you're at, like, we're above the line, don't go below the line. So the recommendation right now is we do not go below the line. until, as a state, we are all ready to move into that place. The timeline they're talking about right now is March to move into that below the line phase. When we think about ourselves, if you look in phase 2, which is spring, it goes to other essential workers and continuity of local government. So phase 1, most folks are not included in, for our purposes, or who's here on this meeting is not included in that phase 1. I know that we have done some folks in our local government, for example, road and bridge folks. We wanted to ensure that we had folks had the ability to keep our county moving and being able to plow the roads, for example. We know that a couple of weeks ago, there was a structure fire up in Beaver Lake Estates, that there was a plow that needed to go ahead of a fire truck in order to access that structure fire. So basically, fire truck is watching a structure burn and cannot get to it. So when you think about some of those folks, we have vaccinated a few of those folks intentionally to make sure that our first response system can continue to function. So if you do know some of the folks, that's why. There's also search and rescue is included in that group. So I also know that there's some county employees that are search and rescue folks who've been vaccinated. Then obviously, police, sheriff, fire, we've done the hospital as well. But that's where we're at. When it comes time for the county to be vaccinated, when we can capture everybody else, we will make sure that we push out that information. We will do what we would call appointed dispensing specifically for that group, bring you guys in and make that happen. And so I know that doesn't feel great, but March is really right around, March is for the below the line, but that opportunity hopefully will be sooner rather than later. The thing to remember that even if you receive both doses of the vaccine, it does not take away the need to wear a mask. It does not take away the need to social distance. It does not take away the need to stay away from people when you're sick. It does not take away the washing of your hands. It does not take away not gathering in large groups. So I think there's a misnomer sometimes that we're hearing that, oh, I got my vaccine, I'm good to go. I don't have to do all these things until we reach what we call herd immunity, which is on debate about whether or not it's 70 or 80% of our population. Then we'll be better at knowing what's going to happen next. There's some conversation at the federal level of if you do have 2 vaccinations, what are some of the pieces that can go away? For example, quarantine, but there are no decisions made. So right now, all of the prevention measures stay in place. So that is where we're at with vaccine. The great news is that both Rocky Mountain Family Practice and St. Vincent Health have the ability to vaccinate. We are receiving about 100 doses per week. So as you can imagine, that doesn't go very far. When we think about our age 70 and up, we are close to 800 folks that we feel that we need to get vaccinated. We're doing great. We're already at 400, so we're halfway there. And we're shaking the bushes, if you will, to make sure that we're not missing anyone. So if you know anybody that might fall into that category who's not aware or they need additional information, please tell them to call public health and we'll work with them. We also have the ability to set up in-home vaccinations if someone's homebound that you're aware of that hasn't had this access or heard this yet. Like, we are doing our best to make sure that we do our due diligence to get to our age 70 and up at this point in time. Any questions on that?
No. I just want to add in, we found out on last week that there was a disruption in the federal supply chain with vaccinations. And so the state was under the impression that we were going to receive more vaccinations than, or we were going to receive more vaccinations. And then we found out that we actually weren't, because there were issues with the federal government's release of those vaccinations. And so that may have a local impact, although we're not 100% sure. And so Colleen has been really great about working with Rocky Mountain Family Practice and St. Vincent Health to develop that scheduling and that plan of, hey, here's what we're expecting for vaccines and here's what we should continue to schedule. But please know that this timeline is very fluid and very flexible, and will change instantly based on the supply chain. So Colleen, I don't know if you want to jump in and add anything there or if I've missed anything, but we're not guaranteed a specific dose of vaccination every week. We just are acting under the assumption that based on the historical trends, this is what we should expect. So I don't know if you want to add anything in there.
No, I think that's correct, Kayla. So the thing to keep in mind is basically we get a 4-day leadway. So as you know, that's just not a great place to continue to respond in that reactive way versus, hey, we've got 2 weeks leadway. We know that we're getting 500 doses. Let's schedule 500 people. It literally is 4 days and sometimes less than that to have that turnaround. But per, Kayla's saying, a lot depends on the supply chain. There's conversation that, manufacturing will catch up and we'll have, more, into the general public, which is great. So as always, it's just like it's been for most of this is, we're providing information as we receive it. There's still so many unknowns and it continues to evolve very quickly. So like I said, the timeline at this point in time is, fluid being, do we have the ability to vaccinate versus, hey, we're done and now we're moving below the line. Like that's going to be a very intentional move across the state and we'll keep you guys informed as well. So thank you so much. I think the thing that I just will share is that I know it's hard to remember to wear your mask. And I have been on a few meetings where I see people, somebody has walked into their office and I see them talking away to their meeting. And I don't think any of our offices really allow us to have 6 feet distance from people. So, someone walks in. Hey, Greg, can you give me a second? And, and that person should also have a mask. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I think sometimes we get in the, no, I'm good. I'm in this, closed environment, but I think, it's important to keep, just keep that in mind. And I know sometimes things are out of your control or you're in a situation, but it's just something I've noticed on some meetings and people having a conversation at their desk without a mask on. And I'm recognizing that there's probably someone within 6 feet of them. Just a little that was your public service announcement for today from Public Health. So thank you.
Cool, thanks, Colleen. Let's see here. Oh, Kaylee put in the chat, the vaccination plan and the graphics and the information is all listed on the OEM's website. So you can click on a link from our county website to get to the OEM website, or you can just visit her website, lakecountyoem.org. So, and if you have any questions, if you have staff that has any questions, if you have friends that have questions or concerns, if you have business owners that need resources, please do not hesitate to give out contact information for Sarah, myself, and Jeff, and we will connect people with the resources that they need. So whether that's somebody getting to St. George's Food Pantry or somebody getting to the EDC to apply for a PPP loan, we can get people in the right places if we know that people need to make that connection. So it's really hard for us to assume that that everybody's taken care of or whatever. But we just can't help people if we don't know. And so please encourage them to contact us and ask us or share feedback with us so that we can do things better. So that's just the important piece for us.
And then
Colleen,
Kayla, I did share, if any of your staff has questions about the vaccine or where we're at, put nurses at co.lake.co.us is the email that all of my nurses are accessing. We're finding that to be a really effective way to get information back out to folks as they're all monitoring it and answering questions as appropriate. And then if there's any questions around retail food or other things that might fall in the environmental health world, same thing, environmental health at co.lake.co.us are kind of the big 2 emails that we've now been funneling public to, and it's been very successful to get back to people pretty effectively versus always a phone call.
Thanks so much, Colleen. I think I just want to tag on to that just a tiny bit. This pandemic response and these changes have not been easy for anybody to navigate, and we all understand that and are empathetic to that. However, that is not an excuse for anyone to be treated poorly. And I will tell you that I think that public health has definitely taken the brunt of that beating, and that my fellow commissioner Mudge and myself have experienced that both outside this pandemic, during the pandemic, and I'm not exactly sure if it's because of the pandemic and the anxiety around that, or if it's merely just because of the national tension and insurrection that we had seen and witnessed kind of come to a head last week. And so I just want to take an opportunity to remind everyone to be the light in somebody's life. It doesn't matter whose it is, but you don't know what people are going through. You only see a small fraction of it. So please just be the light to somebody. I just can't tell you how much impact that will have on someone. You know, I think as a community, we've gone through kind of a lot of tragedy as well in the last couple months. And I really just want to make sure that you know to relay to your staff and for them to share freely that that we have built some really great regional connections and partnerships through the pandemic. To be honest, I can't speak highly enough of Summit County commissioners. We are on the phone with them all the time, and they're great. So I definitely want you guys to know that Summit Community Care Clinic, Solvista Health, and Janine at Human Services have resources for anybody that might need them. If you need somebody to talk to or anything like that, those resources are out there, as well as our EAP program, our Employee Assistance Program. And that information is all listed on our website. If you need contact information for any of those places, please feel free to reach out to Commissioner Mudge, Commissioner Fiedler, or myself, and we will get you contact information so that you can share that with anybody that might approach you that might need it. So I just kind of wanted to dovetail on that a little bit. You know, environmental health has definitely taken a hit. We've lost a staff person there because of some of the treatment that they've received through the pandemic and that kind of thing. And now we have a new staff person there, which we're super excited about. But it's not going to get any easier if we don't support one another. We're all on the same team. So let's just play like we're on the same team. So I just can't thank you all enough for being so understanding and being willing to work through us as we go through some changes of having a new board and of trying to manage the pandemic and keep the day-to-day stuff going. So thank you all very much for all the part that you played in that. We do appreciate you a lot. Brenna, if you want to shoot me an email, I'd be happy to share that information. I've been trying to keep in contact with Sheriff Reyes about some of those threats that have been coming in. Public health has been receiving those as well. And so we definitely want to keep on top of that and let our law enforcement know. So if you want to connect with me on that.
I actually already communicated with both Chief Bertolis and the sheriff, and actually Chris Floyd as well, because things escalated really quickly. We had like a bunch of phone calls from the same guy over the course of a week. And then all of a sudden they stopped. I don't think he's gone away. I think he'll be back at some point to do something. But I've already made the sheriff and the police chief aware. So I think we're okay right now.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. And I'm sorry that you've had to deal with that.
Yeah, it's just been one of many. It's probably been the worst.
And with that, I think we just want to let everybody know we'll keep our facilities closed to the public as we are still in the orange level of the dial. It's been a lever that we've pulled and that has been very effective, I think, for us to keep those numbers decreasing. So just continue to, you know, have everyone commit to diligence to stop the spread and that type of thing, and we'll go from there. So Commissioner Fiedler or Commissioner Mudge, do you guys have anything that you'd like to add at this point?
I have well, actually, I really like your sentiment that you mentioned the other day in a meeting that you've been repeating, Kayla, leaving kind of like a leave no trace mentality, or leaving our roles, not just as elected officials, but as public servants, and leaving the county in a better place than what we found it. So I really like that. So thanks for that. And I just had a question actually on the courthouse work and if we know what's going on at the courthouse.
Yeah, so Paul and I had met with, and Michael Irwin. Sorry, Michael, you're like involved in everything. Had met with Sheriff Reyes and her administrative team. They are working on implementing an X-ray and security platform in the front vestibule of the courthouse. Paul had reached out to the county engineer because we were under the impression that we needed to do some work to make accommodations for that X-ray machine. Paul, do you want to give an update on that? Because it turns out there might not need to be any work done on the physical structure of the courthouse.
The thinking at the time this came up was that the big glass wall that separates the vestibule from the rest of the building, we wanted to take out a couple of panes, but that in order to put the X-ray equipment into those two panes where they are next to the door, that actually involved considerably more work than I think the sheriff's office anticipated. And the county engineer pointed that out to us. And it would seem that as a result of the county engineer's comments, that the sheriff's office wasn't absolutely married to the idea of removing a couple of panes in order to put these two pieces of equipment in. They will be able to go into, actually be entirely contained within the vestibule. This will be interesting because public aren't going to be able to get into the building for anything unless they go through a screen, which is another big change for us all. So so we're going to get a bill from the county engineer that we'll pass on to the sheriff. The result is now all they need is the electrical work to be done to provide the front vestibule with electricity that it didn't have before.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for that update. Yeah, I was kind of hopeful that the sheriff would hop on our call today, but the idea is that they will bring the court security down into the front vestibule of the courthouse, and that anyone entering the facility will need to enter through those front doors and go through screening to get into the building at all. And so the state courts have really been pushing for that to happen for a really long time. And so Sheriff Reyes was awarded a grant for the new X-ray equipment to be put into the front vestibule. And it was my understanding that she had applied for a grant for additional court security staff to be able to man that in the front vestibule. But those updates will have to come from her. Hopefully we'll have those updates in a work session next week. I did authorize Pro Electric also, by the way. There were some wires that were exposed in the hallway of the courthouse, and a plastic cover that had been missing off of a box and had live wires exposed. I did authorize them to fix that. So that is happening this week as well. Bye, Colleen. But other than that, I am not sure of the timeline on the X-ray machine actually being physically installed in the courthouse. I did try to reach out to some of those offices in the courthouse that may be impacted by that, particularly the clerk and recorder's office with it being so close to the front door and them having a waiting area and those chairs outside of our old meeting room. So I'll circle back to Patty about that just to make sure that when that does get there, that Sheriff Reyes definitely has a conversation with her and accommodates for that waiting area and for early voting and voting in general, because I believe that is our polling place. Does that answer your question somewhat, Sarah?
I think we're looking at X-ray equipment to be installed and operating by the end of February.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to add before we hop off for today?
I'm just curious if there's an update about probation moving to the annex and a timeline for that project.
We need to schedule a conversation with the latest proposal with probation. And actually, Janine, she just reached out reminding me that we need to circle back on that. So I do not have an update, but the plan, that is still the plan as far as I understand it.
Okay, I really only ask for Michael and for me to be able to support him with custodian movement and rescheduling. And I did run into a human services personnel person this morning who didn't know about the move and was super upset about it. And so it's not any of my business, but maybe just some communication there to the human services staff. I don't know about what or when that might look like, so.
Thanks, Amber. Yeah, Janine, I think we'll want to schedule a work session to discuss that. I think Commissioner Mudge has been working with Mark Thompson.
Yeah, and it's still in preliminary stages right now. Apparently there are some county employees who have been talking to my employees, telling them information that's not accurate. So I think we should get on top of it.
Yeah, that would probably address what I heard this morning.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe Commissioner Mudge and Fiedler, can we add that to our work session on the 26th? If we can dedicate the first hour of that to the sheriff's office and then have Janine come on after the sheriff and talk through that and a proposal for her phones as well on the 26th, if that would be appropriate for you both.
Yeah, that sounds
okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Janine, would that work for us to have that conversation about probation next Tuesday?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. And there's still, they sent the latest proposal, so there's still quite a bit to go over. So yeah, no.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Amber. I appreciate that feedback. If there's not any other questions or comments or anything today for anybody or any conversation that you'd like to have, I think, I do have one thing. I'm sorry. I am so sorry, you guys. I know I should have talked about this before everybody jumped off. So we're currently working with the Leadville Herald to put in the Herald a public meetings planner, essentially planning for a month ahead. And so in order to compensate for that and make that work, we're going to need to schedule things out a little bit in advance. And so what we're looking at putting in there is our public meetings, probably the Planning Commission, because development is really important and big. And then putting those other meetings like maybe Airport Board, Rec Board, those types of things on their other community calendar. And so what I've been trying to do or trying to build into, I guess, in the last couple of weeks is developing the weekly planner and the agendas for our meetings and work sessions well in advance. And so if you have something that you need to put on the agenda, can you please email it to both Patty and myself? And then I will connect with Patty to make sure that her and I have the same information and that our packets are emailed out with our agenda and our weekly planner for public review prior to our meeting. And I'll work with legal in getting that information collected and vetted so that the information that's included in that packet is appropriate for public consumption and not violating any attorney-client privilege or anything like that.
Can I suggest that those requests get sent to the whole board and then we can forward that once we determine what our agenda is going to be forward that
Yeah.
on for posting.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point, Sarah. And I think something that we'd really like to start to do that we've talked about for a long time, and now that we do have a new board seated, what we'd really like to do is have a work session to talk things through that may be bigger than a renewal of a contract type of thing. If it's a new project, a new RFP, something like that, have a work session in between putting it on a meeting agenda for a decision, so that it can be vetted by board members and we can ask questions and educate ourselves on those proposals prior to making a formal decision that will have a greater impact on us. So if you can do that and send an email to myself, the board, and Patty, and then I'll work with Patty to schedule that and put that on a agenda, that would be really great and really helpful. So yeah, so we're working towards that with the Herald, and that's going to be a learning curve and a learning process for us to figure out how to do it best. But very important with that partnership for us to get that information out there so that we have more participation. You'll also notice on that resolution of board appointments that we do have several boards that have vacancies. If you'll email those vacancies on those boards to me and the length of those terms, I will put together an advertisement in the Herald so that we can solicit applications for those boards and participation. So that would be fantastic. And and that's it. I really don't have anything else now. Sorry, guys. Commissioner Mudge or Commissioner Fiedler, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I'm all set. Thanks.
No, thanks, Kayla. It's good to see everybody.
Yeah, good to see you all. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. I'll follow up with an email, and we'll hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.